Welcome to the Practice Impossible podcast, where your host, Jude Pierre, MD, also known as Coach JPMD, discusses medical practice topics that will guide you through the maze that is the business of medicine and teach you how to increase profits and help populations live long. Your mission, should you choose to accept, is to listen and be transformed. Now, here's your host, Coach JPMD.
Thank you for listening to the Practice Impossible podcast. I'm looking for 10 ambitious physicians to show how they can dramatically increase their income in 90 days or less, even if they just started their careers. Plus, everything I've learned running my practice for 20 plus years to completely eliminate debt in 3 years or less. That's with no additional administrative work or stressful practice chores like completing chart notes, and more time to enjoy with your family and friends. So before you continue this, press pause, and if you're interested, so email me at info@coachjpmd.com and I'll send you more information. That's info@coachjpmd.com, looking for 10 ambitious physicians to dramatically increase their income in 90 days or less and show them how they can eliminate their debt in 3 years or less. Okay, so thanks for doing that. So let's get into our next episode with Dr. George Joseph. So I was told by someone that's going to remain nameless for now that my podcast need to include some jokes or be fun and not be so sterile. And so I'm going to start off with a joke. So this one comes from a patient, and I never remember these jokes, but I had to actually write this one down. Where do you go in your house if you want to live long? The living room. All right, one more. I know that was probably pretty cheesy, but what did the drum say to the drumstick? My heart beats for you. I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, let me get into the episode. So we're in episode 11 with Dr. George Joseph, and Dr. George Joseph is a cardiologist who actually comes from Haiti. So Dr. George Joseph is a trained cardiologist, interventional cardiologist, who I guess started his career in Florida, where he attended Edison College in Fort Myers, and then completed his medical technology degree at the University of South Florida, and then his internship towards his medical technology degree at Bayfront Medical Center in St. Pete. He then went to Ross University School of Medicine in Dominica, West Indies, and then completed an internal medicine residency training at my alma mater, University of Miami School of Medicine at the John F. Kennedy Medical Center, and then completed his cardiology fellowship at the Louisiana State University. After that, he went to Albany College of Medicine, or Albany Medical College, and completed his interventional fellowship in cardiology and structural cardiology, as well as transcatheter aortic valve replacement. And he's got a pretty impressive resume here as I look through it, and graduating with high honors. And, you know, it's an honor to bring Dr. George Joseph onto the podcast to talk about his experience coming into Hernando County, where I practice, and I've been practicing for 20 years. And he describes how he's able to do certain things that he wouldn't have possibly been able to do if he had stayed in a big city. So we welcome Dr. Joseph to our podcast, and want to have a down-to-earth conversation with him about his experience and how he feels we can practice medicine impossibly. Welcome to the Practice Impossible podcast, so where we're today joined by Dr. George Joseph, MD, interventional cardiologist, who is in Brooksville. And Dr. Joseph, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell us about yourself?
All right. So again, my name is Dr. George Joseph, actually George Joseph Jr. I'm a junior because my dad is George Joseph. He's a senior. Just a small background. I'll be brief because it's long, so we don't have a lot of time. Originally from Haiti, grew up in a country like Haiti, has its own hurdles and its own challenges. Now, fast forward, unfortunately, at the age of 13, 14, my mom passed from cancer. She had cervical cancer that metastasized to the lung, and she fought it for a little while. From Haiti, actually, she came here in the U.S. in Miami. She actually passed away in Miami after many trials and chemos, a lot of stuff. Finally, she passed. It was hard, 13, 14 years old. That's kind of hard. But at that time, I guess in Haiti, we went back to Haiti. We studied partly. I was a kid in Haiti, a teenager at that time. And my dad looked at the country back then and said, for some reason, he had that kind of vision that it feels like the country was not gonna, offer, our family our potential, what we could, become. So that's why we actually came to the U.S. at a very young age. So sole purpose was to for education, because my dad was a physician in Haiti. We were well off in Haiti. That was not a problem. But for education purposes, he felt that that the country would not offer us what we're capable of.
And what?
So that's why we came here.
And what year was that? When was that?
That was 19. My mom passed away in 1999. 1999. Okay. Yes. So that's why me, my sisters, and my brother, we finally immigrated to the U.S.
Okay.
Before that, we used to come to the U.S. on vacation. U.S. was our vacation spot, by the way. Yeah. So when we were a kid, that's what we used to do. But finally, we finally came here for good, and then we studied. So from my end, I think at that very young age, very motivated. School and grades. I started college at 16, very early in life.
Wow.
And then from college, fast forward, decided, since high school, that's when I decided to become a physician. Because growing in Haiti, you have to remember my dad did a lot of great work in Haiti. And as a youngster, you're seeing your dad doing all this kind of work, saving lives, it actually helped shape what I wanted to do in the future. So that's why I decided to become a physician. I didn't know what kind of doctor I wanted to become, but I decided to become a physician. And then fast forward, hard work, study a lot. And then finally decided to go to medical school. I did medical technology before, which is a lab tech, and then decided, hey, you know what? I don't think that's enough. Fast forward to go to med school, excel, do well. And then residency, from residency to fellowship, from fellowship to interventional fellowship. So I'm fast forwarding everything here.
Sure.
And to where I am today. So now let's talk about at least the past few years, because that's where the biggest challenges were. Because going to school is one challenge. Starting a practice after school is the biggest challenge. So that's where I think we should at least spend a little bit of time. Because it was a tough decision, because after interventional fellowship, it's about, just for somebody to have an idea, to become an interventional cardiologist, if you really count all the years, it's about 15 years total. Okay, it's about 15 years to really do this between, if you start your college or medical school, I spent about, after medical school, I spent about another 3 years of residency, 3 years of fellowship, and 1 year interventional. So I spent 7 years after med school to become an interventional cardiologist.
Yeah, that's a lot of years.
So it's a long road. But now finishing in 2018 and trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. So that's the biggest hurdle. So you had an opportunity to go from big city to small city. Yes.
And I think that's when I kind of met you.
Yes.
Around that time, and you were trying to make a decision to come to Spring Hill versus.
Correct. So I came from my fellowship in interventional cardiology and structural heart, that's where we do a little bit more advanced than just interventional cardiology. It was at Albany Medical Center, big city. We did a lot up there. So my program director actually offered me a position to the point that he offered me his practice. That's how big that was. That's how big that decision was. He was like, hey, George, I want you to come in here. I'm going to give you all my patients. You don't have to pay $1. You just walked in tomorrow. All my patient goes to you. Okay. He wants to focus more on the structure and stuff like this. He was like, I want to give you all my patient. That's how much I want you to be in our practice in upstate New York. So I look at that opportunity. And I'm the kind of guy who was a little driven. I said, it's a great opportunity. You're given something on a silver platter, but I want to create my own practice. I want to start from scratch. I want to do this. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And that's what I wanted to start. So between that decision, it was a tough decision to turn away a big practice that they hand you out of fellowship with no money. You have to pay $1. You just walk in practice in upstate New York. That was that was big.
So that our audience is going to say, why did you do that? What was so enticing about where you are now?
So now I looked at that opportunity upstate New York, And I wanted to find a place where I wanted to start from scratch to build my own practice. That was the big difference. So should I
Mhm.
take something that's already been built and then I didn't really work hard for, or should I just come in and build my own practice my own way and really feel it's a different feeling. Let's put it this way. Okay, it's a different feeling. So that's why and also Florida, I wanted to come back to Florida. That's the second part of the decision because my family's in Florida, everybody's in Florida. I wanted to come back to Florida versus staying in upstate New York, kind of away from family. So those
Mhm.
play a role between family and wanted to do and build a practice from scratch was the stuff that makes me decide whether I want to stay in upstate New York versus coming down here in Florida. So
Yeah.
that's when we
So
met.
you
That's
had
when we
to.
met. Yes.
That's when we
Yes.
met. And so, some of those decisions obviously have to be made with the lens of your business knowledge.
Yes.
So where did you, or how did you learn the business knowledge, or where did you get that information from that helped you be where you are today?
So everybody asked me that question, and as a matter of fact, I didn't spend a minute in business school, by the way. So it's something came natural. Okay. So the business part of the medicine, I actually learn as I go. I did learn as I go. And I'm a quick learner. That's the second thing. Okay. Very, very quick learner. A lot of stuff, there's a little mistake I made at the beginning from the business part of the medicine, not from the medicine part, from the business part, that I didn't know. And then you figure it out. When you start having hurdles with insurance company, then you're like, oh, that's how it works now. Okay. So you figure it out. So I learn as I go and I learn very quickly. So that's why I from the get-go when I met you here, that you actually helped me make a big decision because remember I was between Brooksville and Miami or Fort Lauderdale area. So
Yeah.
I got two positions offered around those two places. And finally, after I met you, I was like, this area might be it suits me better. It suits what I want to do, my vision and everything else, my specialty, my skill set. This area would benefit from my skill set way better than Miami or Fort Lauderdale. So that's another.
Yeah, and
That's
that's a
another
big
way that
decision because
yes,
I know that there's some procedures that were not being done. I believe prior to you
yes,
coming to Spring Hill, and you gave me a story about one of the first procedures you did in Hernando County.
yes.
I can't remember. It was kind of way over my head because I'm 20 years out of residency, so some of the things you were saying, I'm like, what? What's that? What you do that?
Yes, yes. So that's one of the reasons. Even after I've been here for about a year or so, and I felt like I absolutely made the right decision because there's that procedure I told you about. It's called a patent foramen valley closure. So before I came here in Spring Hill, even in Hernando County, nobody ever heard what I did. People had strokes. People go home with strokes. People go home have recurrent multiple strokes, and I started that program right here over at in the county.
Mhm.
So I was the first one to actually close what we call a pin, which is a small hole inside of a heart chamber that can cause stroke. And I was featured, I went to the radio station. We talk about that, how it happens, and why people should know about this. And before that, nobody knew about this kind of stuff. So those set of skill set, it was very important. That's how I felt like this was the right place for me. And then since then, I've been helping a lot of folks with this kind of issues.
Sure. And so how do you get support from the hospital system? Let's say you're bringing in new procedures and, I know some of the hospitals have been transferring a lot of these patients. And from our standpoint, we do a lot of managed care.
Yes.
And we like to be involved in that. So there's going to be two questions around that.
Yes.
So how do hospitals support you? Number one.
So number one, the hospital, especially all the hospitals here in town, are very supportive. In the sense that they give me the tools. As soon as I ask for example, the patent foramen valley closure, it's a special device that they have to bring in. They have to make an investment to purchase those things for me to be able to use them. And so far, the hospitals in town here, especially Oak Hill, has not have any issues in providing those kind of tools for us to use here, especially for me to use to actually help this patient. So that's the biggest way the hospital support, because if the hospital is not investing and not actually bringing these things in, it doesn't matter my skill set, it's not going to happen. So,
Yeah.
which means the hospital is they play a big role, and actually, to facilitate all these things to happen. So this is one of many stuff that I've done that the hospital actually help with. The second one is mechanical support for a patient having heart failure. Somebody will come in with a heart attack. The hospital also have to purchase those devices and have them become available for me to use them. So those are the biggest way the hospital supports, the practice.
And what are your challenges with the nursing staff? Because I'm sure nursing staff may be unaware of some of these procedures. And
Correct.
are there training programs or training seminars that you give to nurses as well?
I do. So actually, every time we start those programs, we actually have a set of nursing staff who are interested and actually learn. So we send them places to learn, and also with the collaboration of what I know, actually teach them how to manage the nursing side of these complex procedures. Because once I'm done with the procedure, the nursing have to, on the bedside, have to know how to for the consideration and the proper care for that patient who's very sick. The nursing staff has been very receptive. Some hospital better than others, but the nursing staff have been very receptive so far, and that's why the program is still alive.
Yeah, that's great. And so, we are appreciative as a primary care physician. Sometimes we have patients that go to tertiary care centers for some of these procedures, and the cost can be astronomical.
Correct.
And we, as primary care doctors, can't manage patients when they're in a hospital 50 miles away. I remember having a patient whose wife had a brain bleed, or it fell, and she had dementia. She had other medical problems, and they airlifted her to a local hospital 50 miles away in Tampa, and ended up unfortunately passing away after a couple of weeks. But I could see the husband, who was heartbroken because he wasn't able to see his wife because he went 50 miles away and he couldn't drive that distance. And so I know that, dealing with these procedures and doing the procedures locally definitely will help family members stay local.
Oh, yes.
But also save costs as well.
Yes.
Because, I'm not sure how much you knew about Medicare Advantage prior to coming here, but it's a huge cost advantage for us.
Correct.
And so what do you know now that you didn't know about Medicare Advantage?
So again, when I first met you, another guy that I have to mention, his name is Rob Foreman.
Yeah.
So Rob Foreman is the guy who actually brought me in town. So, and then, we met. And he taught me a little. He taught me, I think the time I came to interview, he spent about a few minutes just giving me an idea what managed care was. And I had no idea. In fellowship, you have to understand. Fellowship, they don't teach us anything about the real business part of medicine. They teach you medicine. And then the business part, you have to figure it out when you get out. So I started learning at that time. But as of now, as you can imagine, I've learned more about managed care. I've learned about, the cost saving, the efficiency of the care. And, I've heard about Dr. Singh, but I've never met him. I would like to meet him at one point in life, but I've never met him. But I'm sure that I've done a lot, like especially all the hospital in town. A lot of them, I take a lot of managed care. I take care of a lot of managed care. And a lot of my physician for either the hospitalist or the primary care side. So far, I've worked with them a lot because, those stuff that I provide. And actually, for example, I think it was 3 to 4 months when I started working here. I have one of the hospitalists from managed care who actually approached me. There was a patient they were about to send to Tampa because for some reason they turned them down here over at the local hospital in the area. The physician think like he was too high risk to perform a certain procedure. And he approached me and said, Dr. Joseph, do you think you can help this patient? I was like, well, let me look at the case. So I actually look at the patient. I said, yeah, I think this is something we can do here. And then they put me on consult. I came in and took care of the patient. A day or two later, the patient went home after I did a high-risk procedure on the patient. And the patient didn't have to get transferred to Tampa General to get those high-risk procedures. So since then, I think that's the first time, he was one of the hospitalists for managed care patient here. And that's the first time he was like, okay, Dr. Joseph. So then from now on, we'll probably, we'll be talking. So, and since then, I've been taking care I'm talking about a lot of the managed care patients in the hospital and the community. Anything that they think we should do in town, I said, let's do it here. Let's take care of the patient, their family here, their primary care is here. You guys are here. We know the patient. Let's take care of them in town rather than sending them away. So we've been doing a lot of that lately. So that's why I've had a lot of managed care patients in my practice or in the hospital. I take care of them.
So you've described a lot of the things that you've done and learned in residency, and some new grads may not have the gumption or the will or the drive to learn the business of medicine. So what would you tell a new grad coming out? So you've got a new interventional cardiologist graduating, and they're not sure where to go. They're not sure, what hospitals to go. What would you tell them? What would you tell that new grad?
Then a new grad, I've since then I've actually met a couple new grads that were trying to recruit in the area also. So the new grad, the first thing they have to figure out is what is their goal, long-term goal, okay, as a new grad. Because some new grad that I've met, they want to come in, they do their shift work, they do their couple of, calls, and then they want to go home. And, that's what they want to do. If this is what you want to do, that's fine. Okay. You find a practice that matches that. But I can tell you that when I started on my own, by myself, to start the practice, I worked the first 90 days without stopping. Okay. That's what I want to do. And that's what, that was my goal. So if somebody cannot handle that, then you can think of what else, just join a group and do your regular calls and stuff like this. My phone was on 24/7 for the first 90 days until I had one day, I had somebody, hey, can you please help me? So one of the other guys in the community asked them, hey, can you help me at least take some night calls for me? If there's something else, you can still call me. But since then, that's the way I've been practicing, and that's the way I actually grow the practice, is because I'm available. You have to be available. If your patient needs you, you're a heart doctor. Your patient needs you, they can't find you. That's not a good thing. So again, new grad have to figure out what you want to do, what your long-term goal is. If you want to start your own practice, perfect. It's not going to be easy. Okay. It's going to be tough. And at the same time, the cost is not only the fact that you're on call, but the family also, because my family, I told them, hey, we're going to build this practice. The first year, couple years, 3 years, it's going to be tough. And after that, we can try to get other, interventional cardiologists on board, expand the practice, do other stuff like that. But as you're starting the business, part of it on your own is going to be tough. So that's the thing about the new grad, is figure it out which way you want to go. If you want to take the road like I did, it's going to be a tough one. Versus if you want to join just regular practices and then be on call with 5-10 other physicians and then get your regular schedule, that's something you really have to figure out on your own in terms of how you want to go.
Yeah. So you've done it. You're hardworking. You're pushing forward. But looking back now, I'm focused on kind of figuring out what's the one thing we can do, such that by doing it makes everything else easier, necessary, or unnecessary. What would you say would be the one thing that you could have done differently? Even though you're forging forward, you're building a practice, what would be that one thing you'd say, maybe I could have done this differently?
So I looked at the past 3 years. There's probably a few things. There's not one thing. There's a lot of stuff we could have, I could have done different in terms of the practice itself. Now, I joined one of my partners here over in the area. So something you always wonder, because even if I started, on your own, but you also partner with somebody else to do it. One thing you think about, could I have done it all by myself without, joining anybody to partner with, at least to help grow a practice? That's one thing you always wonder. But when I think back, I'm like, if I did take that route, I don't know if it would have been as beneficial, because you need somebody, somehow, some way to help you, even though you feel like you want to do it on your own, but you need that guidance. So I feel like that, that's one thing I always wonder about. But now almost 3 years into it, I feel like this was the right decision. It's at least to have a mentor, somebody with me, in my practice, even though I'm building my side of the practice, but he was my mentor to help guide, to help avoid some of the mistakes. So I think that's important.
So where can we find you if someone wants to?
So our office is right here in Brooksville, near Oak Hill Hospital. So we're about a couple blocks right here on Cortez. So easy to find me is you can either Google me. That's another thing. As a matter of fact, a lot of my patients who met me, they met me on Google before they met me. So a lot of them go online, they say, "Oh, Dr. Joseph, we saw your reviews." I'm like, well, maybe I should look at my reviews. I haven't even looked at my reviews, okay? But I've been focusing on, taking care of my patient and then providing a phenomenal and exceptional care in the community. But a lot of my patients, that's how they met me. So, just my name, Dr. George Joseph, and Google and Brooksville, and you should, my name and the address of the practice should show up. I think it's 10065 Cortez Boulevard. That's where we're locating.
Sure, and I'll link to your profile also on the show notes after the podcast.
The practice. So those are the places. That's where you find me, and our practice and my patient right now. The practice is growing. They should, any patient who wants, to see me, they should be able to see me. We have a short waiting. That's why I work so hard. I try not to make my patient who wants to come into the practice wait for more than at least 3 to 4 weeks maximum. We're trying to get them in as soon as possible. No matter how busy I get, I'm trying to get those new patients, in as soon as possible, especially if they have heart issues and stuff like this. We try not to make them wait for too long. So that's very important to us. Yes.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate this discussion, Dr. Joseph, and we wish you well. With that attitude. And I know that you're going to be successful, and you'll probably be expanding soon. So if any interventional cardiologist wants to join you, they should
we're looking. We're actually looking. For interventional cardiologists to come and join the practice and expand. We're actually looking right now. So
wonderful.
That's
wonderful.
That's a good thing.
Great conversation. Thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Thank you, Dr. Pierre.
What a great conversation with Dr. Joseph. We so appreciate him coming on our Practice Impossible podcast. And, it's great to hear from young physicians coming out, doing amazing things in the county and innovative things as well. And I think it's great to hear how he's learned from some of the things that he's gone through in his career. And we totally wish him the best. And if you want to see how he practices or what he does, and if you want to reach out to him, I'll leave the website in the show notes, but don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and your colleagues, because that's how we get the word out and how we help physicians practice impossible.